Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. My name is Garrett, if you are unfamiliar, and this is the second season, if you will, of our live streams with Light Panels. So thanks again to Light Panels for hosting this. If you are just tuning in for the first time, last year we did a series on professional lighting techniques where we went through and talked about how to light different scenes and scenarios that filmmakers may find themselves in. You can find the recordings of that series on Light Panels YouTube channel. So hello to everyone from wherever you are. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. I'd love to see in the chat where everyone is from. As we go through today, if you have questions, comments, concerns, that kind of a thing, there is a Q&A module in the Zoom where you can post your questions there. You can also use the chat. It may be easier for me to find and see them in the Q&A module, but either way, that is where you can post your questions. I will reserve time at the end of the live stream for questions, but as of course we are going through this, if things come up, feel free to put them into there. So this season of live streams, we are talking about cinematic storytelling. We are going to be expanding the scope of what we talk about to include lighting, but not just exclusively be about lighting. And today's live stream, as you guys know, is about AI in filmmaking. Now, AI is everywhere, and it is all of the discussion and conversation, especially in the creative space. And there are a lot of big questions that come with that in terms of ethics and how it's used and whether or not it will or won't replace people's jobs and all of that kind of thing. Those are important topics and important conversations to have, and it will be interesting to see how that all plays out as this technology moves forward, because it is moving forward incredibly rapidly. That is not, however, what we are going to be talking about today. Today, what we are going to be talking about is how we can use the tools that exist in their current space to help accelerate our workflow as filmmakers, to help get creative inspiration, to prevent writer's block, a whole other bunch of ways that we can use different AI tools as creatives, not to do the work for us, but to help us in doing the work. And today's project that we're going to be looking at was created entirely by AI. And what I mean by that is not that it filmed the movie for us, but it gave us the entire blueprint or pre-production kit on how to make this short film, including the premise, the shots, the storyboards, and everything. And we're going to get into all of that. But before we can actually discuss how we did this and how we used this and what that looked like, the first thing we need to do is, of course, actually look at the short. So before we get in any further, let's take a look at this.
With trembling hands and quaking heart, I stand before the door apart, gathering strength and summoning might to step into a brand new light. The shadows linger, dark and long, oh, and doubts assail with haunting song. To rise above the chains of fear and claim the dreams that once seemed near. So I take a step, then two and three, and find my strength and bravery. For though the journey may be long, my heart is fierce, my spirit strong. I leave behind the doubts and fears and embrace the joy that now appears. For I am free and I am bold, with every step my story told.
Okay, so that was the short that we're looking at, called The Last Goodbye. And I'm going to now kind of break into how we created that, what went into that, and of course how AI was used for that. All of the tools that we're going to be discussing today, all of the different AI technology that we're going to be talking about is either free, has a free version, or has a free trial. So all of the tools you will have access to. I don't know if there are region-specific things in terms of where certain tools are available or not. I believe all of these are available globally, but either way, we're going to be looking at that. So the first thing I kind of want to talk about is the pre-production kit. The pre-production kit, of course, is the blueprint itself of what we used to film this. An important thing to note, by the way, as we get into this, all of the decision making was done by the AI. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But the night before filming, we ended up getting about a foot of snow here. And as such, the talent that we had cast couldn't get here due to the weather. So our producer was kind enough to step in and be our talent for this. So you'll see a discrepancy, of course, between the character that is stated in the pre-production and then the character that is on screen. We did have somebody who matched the description, but unfortunately, due to the weather, we weren't able to do that. So we start here, this is kind of the beginning of the pre-production kit. The graphics here were made by Midjourney, which is the AI image generation tool that we'll talk about here in a little bit. The only parameter that I gave ChatGPT, which if you are unfamiliar with ChatGPT at this point, it is an AI language learning model. What that means is that it is a conversation AI tool that's all done through a chat type simulation, like texting, iMessage, that kind of thing. And you can get it to do all sorts of things if you kind of understand how it works and how it functions. And for this short, it started with a question. Then the question that I posed for it was, is it able, of course, to make a movie? And it tells me no, because it's only working with AI, but it is trained on lots of aspects of filmmaking, and so it can be used as a helpful tool. So I told it to give me a premise for a movie that was 1 to 2 minutes long, that took place in one location, that had 1 to 2 actors and little to no dialogue. That was the parameter. And it gave me a list of 5 premises, one of which was this one, which is The Last Goodbye. Now, it gave me the title, it gave me the premise, it gave me the actors, the visual style, the story structure. It gave me this whole thing based on that question of just give me those parameters. So this is how we ended up here with the premise of our film. From there, and we'll demo this a little later, I was then able to have it give me a script. In script format, that's this, right? Now, again, no dialogue in this, so the script format is solely based on action lines, but it takes the small premise that it has, which is just 3 sentences long, and it then is able to expand that on its own into this script. From the script, we then created a character Bible. And if you are unfamiliar with a character Bible is a deep dive explanation of the character or characters in a movie. And these are generally given to the talent to help them understand their drive, their emotion, their performance. And it's not things that are necessarily directly related to the film itself, but they are things that are important for the actors to understand what they need to bring to the character in order to perform in the film on its own. And yes, Nathan, ChatGPT did create the character Bible for me. So including the name, the occupation, everything else. So if we come in here real quick here, it came up with the name Maya Evans, late 20s freelance photographer. Here's her background, her personality, her appearance, her strengths, weaknesses, goals, and motivations. All of this was generated by ChatGPT, and it's all very, very helpful pieces of information to give to your actor. So as you can see here, of course, there are also character design sheet here, right? Which is what the character looks like. And the way that we got that, and again, we'll demo this here in a little bit, is I just distilled down this little appearance section that ChatGPT wrote into a pretty short, concise summary. I then took that into Midjourney and told it to create a character design based on this appearance, and it then gave me what this character should look like. So this sheet in and of itself, along with the script, is a great starting point in being able to convey what we're doing to our talent, which is going to then again get the best possible performances out of them. This is then where we actually have a lot of fun with this. So once we get this done, we then have the script. I can then take the script, feed that back into ChatGPT, and ask for a prop breakdown. Now, if you are familiar with the way that we do things kind of from a pre-production standpoint, a prop breakdown is a super, super important aspect within pre-production because it lets us know all of the things that we need to bring to a set that would not necessarily be there on its own. There would be a props master and the art department and all of that would do that. Of course, this is a much smaller shoot, so we're just doing it on our own. But what's cool is, Gavin, give me just a second. I'll get to your question in just a second here. But what's cool is that, and maybe I'll bring it closer here so you can see it a little bit. It tells me the item, the number of items, the description of that item, the purpose that that item serves, and then the location within the shoot that those items are needed. And it did all of that for me just based on the script that was given. So it read the script and popped this out. Now, obviously, from a formatting perspective on all of this stuff, this was all done in InDesign and Photoshop, which is why it kind of has the look that it has. But the content was all generated by AI. Okay, so to Gavin's question, Gavin asks real quick here, did it create the character reference to the script that it had created, or is it a random character? No. The answer to your question is that all of this is self-feeding. And when we do the demo kind of at the end of how all of this works, I am just feeding ChatGPT the information that it gives me and then asking for something else from it. And I just kind of recreate that cycle. So to create the character Bible, I gave it the script and told it to create a character Bible for me for the main character of that script. And it generated all of that information on its own based on the script that it was given. So it's kind of this circular kind of piece to it here. Matthew asks, are there certain prompts that you've used to get each of those sheets? Yes. So we'll get into the specifics of ChatGPT here in a little bit, but yes, there are ways that you can ask for things or tell it to give you things that make it a little bit more accurate or tailored to what you want. If you just approach it in just kind of a standard chat format, you're going to run into a lot of roadblocks and a lot of limitations. But if you understand kind of how to work and work within the system of ChatGPT, you can get it to generate all of this stuff for you. Eamon asks, was the prop breakdown accurate? Now, this is a great question. Yes, this prop breakdown is accurate to the script. That said, one of the limitations, and there are plenty of limitations within AI, but specifically ChatGPT, is that the longer that your chat goes with the AI, the more redundant it becomes, the more that it's just using the information within the chat to inform future decisions within that. So when I am working within ChatGPT, I'm creating a new chat for every function that I want it to perform. And the reason why I do that is to keep it focused, to keep it doing exactly the one singular item that I want it to do. But to that point, if we go back to going from the premise to the script. If I were to open a bunch of different chat windows and I was to give it the same premise and ask for a script, this script would be different every single time. And that's, of course, because it's generating based off of kind of an initial piece without having kind of a final output. So it's important that as you're going through and using these AI tools to generate things for you, I generally will kind of keep a Word document open, and everything it generates, I kind of push into this Word document. That way I can start new chats and pull in the relevant information for any particular function that I'm looking for it to do. Amir, yes, the prompts we are going to be talking about here on the chat. This video will be put up onto Light Panel's YouTube channel. So if you want to go back and review all of this stuff, this will be up over there. You should subscribe to their YouTube channel for all the awesome info there. The other thing is, and I'll put this in the chat right now, there's a link that I just put into the chat, which actually has the digital of this pre-pro kit. So if you want to kind of look at this in detail after the fact, you can download that there. Okay, so let's see here. John says, I've found sometimes that ChatGPT makes weird mistakes. Yes, ChatGPT does two things very well. One, it does things poorly, and two, it lies to you. So yes, it is not a one-stop shop where you punch a button and then you get exactly what you want. I would say that ChatGPT regularly gives you about 85% of what you're looking for, which is great in terms of giving you a starting point that you can then work with. Now, in this case, and we'll talk about it a little bit later, we did just use it as is. What it generated, we created as closely as we could, for better or worse. We're going to talk about some of those limitations here in just a little bit. James from the Light Panels team just put Light Panels YouTube channel up in the chat. Do make sure you subscribe to them. Also, subscribe to my YouTube. We're going to be doing more AI stuff over there. That's just youtube.com/Garrett Salmons. Let's get back to this real quick. So we're not even at the crazy bit yet. Prop breakdown, super, super, super awesome and important pre-production tool. This is then where we started to have some real fun. We then had chat create a shot list, again, based on this script. So we fed it the script and we said that we wanted a detailed shot list for that script. And one of the cool things that not a ton of people know about ChatGPT is you can actually get it to deliver content in a table format like this, which then you can copy and paste directly into Google Sheets or Microsoft Excel or any of those kind of things, okay? So in this data here, and if you were to download the pre-pro kit that I put in the chat, you'll be able to kind of see this a little bit here, but we have our shot number, shot size, so wide, medium, close up, that kind of thing. Shot angle, eye level, low angle, high angle, all of that kind of stuff. Any movement, lens choices, description of action, and any sort of sound indication, right? So this is a pretty detailed piece. Now, to John's earlier question, obviously ChatGPT does not know the lenses that I have available to me to film with. So in the way that I structure what I want ChatGPT to do for me, I need to list out any specific details that I have. So for this, when I told ChatGPT to give me a shot list based on this script, I told it what I wanted each of the columns to be. So in this case, shot number, shot size, angle, movement, lens, description, and sound. I told it that, and then within the lens category, I said, here are the options for lenses: 15, 24, 35, 50, 60 macro, and 90, right? Because that's the lens set that I have. And so then it's able to make decisions and give me those results based on what I'm asking for. Now, as amazing as this is, and it is quite amazing that it's able to generate this for me, one thing that's really important to understand is that it is a language AI, which means it doesn't have eyeballs and it does not understand visuals in the way that you and I do. It theoretically understands based off of the training data that it's been given, but it has not seen things. As such, it does not have an intrinsic understanding of camera movement as a visual language. If any of you are cinematographers, directors of photography, camera operators, work in the camera department in any form, you'll know that movement is intrinsically tied into the narrative. How we want people to feel should dictate how, when, and why we move the camera. That actually is our next live stream. So when we do part 2 of this season of cinematic storytelling, we are going to be talking about image systems, camera movement, the tools that we use to move the camera, why, when, and how we move the camera, and how we make those creative choices. So if you have not yet done so, James just put a link into the chat there. You should sign up for that or pre-register for that, because that's going to be a really cool way of diving into more of the language of cinematography than what chat understands or knows about. The other thing to know is that it also does not understand lens theory. Lens theory, of course, being why we choose what lens we choose for the particular shots. We don't just slap a wide lens onto a camera when we were doing a wide shot, or a long lens when we're shooting a close-up shot, right? We choose the lenses that we want for a particular shot based on how we want the relationship of our character to be with the world that's around them. And those are the decisions that we use to make our lens choices. That said, of course, ChatGPT doesn't know any of that, so it created movement for me and it created lens choices for me. But you'll see as we kind of break down the short film, these lens choices aren't necessarily the lens choices that I would normally use. But if we're thinking about, again, accelerating workflows, if we're thinking about this in terms of a tool to start a conversation, to get us going, to get us creatively thinking outside of our own heads, this is a great way to start, and it's much faster and easier to edit and tweak things than it is to necessarily create things, especially if you have a very specific vision in your head and you're unsure of how to bring it out into the world. These are tools that can kind of help you get started in the way that you're thinking about that. So Gavin says, theoretically, you could just feed it your own script and then it creates a potential shot list, but it's not a DOP. You just answered my question. Yes. Okay, now, these were all ChatGPT pieces here. By the way, the poem that was read in this, I also had it create. So it wrote the poem for the voiceover, and all I gave it was the title and premise of the film, and I told it to write me a poem that spoke to that same feeling, right? And so that poem was there. Also, and we'll get into this a little later, the voiceover artist that spoke the poem in the short, that's also an AI voice of not a real person. So all of this, we really leaned in heavily on the AI front, needlessly so, just to kind of show an extreme example of things that it can do. But we'll talk about how those things can actually be helpful moving on. Now, when it comes to art generation or image generation within AI, there's kind of 3 main players, and if you're paying attention to AI, these names will be familiar. The 3 big ones are going to be DALL-E, specifically DALL-E 2, Stable Diffusion, and Midjourney. 3 different AI tools that work 3 completely different ways and generate completely different results. The one that we're going to be looking at today is going to be Midjourney. What I did to generate all of the shots in my storyboard, you can see here, like this, here and here. These are all created within Midjourney. And if you've had the displeasure of seeing my drawing skills in the past live streams, you'll know that my artistic style will not get anything that looks remotely close to this. I am very good at stick figures with eyeballs, right? That's kind of the world that I'm living in. But as you can see here, I have a very detailed and accurate shot list or storyboard based on my shot list. And we'll talk about how you can get this to generate the look that you're going for, because there's kind of a little bit of a trick to get it to do that. But again, if you are on a tight timeline, if you are on a tight budget, if you are like me and you do a lot of the work yourself and you are unable to draw well, this is a much better way of showing a client, of showing camera department, of showing producers, of showing all of the different figureheads that need to see what we're doing. It's a great way of showing them how to do that. But like with all things, this is a pre-production kit, right? This informs the storytelling process. This isn't replacing this. Now, there are video AI tools that are coming out. Runway Gen 1 is one of the big ones that people are excited about. They're all different. They all do different things. They're all going to be different tools. And regardless of how you feel about AI, the technology of AI is not going anywhere, right? We're not putting Pandora back in the box. The cat's out of the bag, and it's going to take some form as we move forward. And with that, it's important to understand how we can use these tools, because I think that the creatives that can learn and adapt quickly on how to incorporate these tools into their workflows are going to find more long-term success more quickly than people who don't necessarily do this. And we can see this in a couple of applications. Adobe right now has the Music Remix tool, and if you're unfamiliar with that, in Premiere, there's now a new tool called Music Remix, where you can have the edit of your project the length that you want. You can have the song that has the right influence, feel, look, or tone and style that you want. And with the Music Remix tool, you can just click and drag your music clip to the length that you want it to be for the edit, and it will go through and do all of the splicing for you. If you've done any editing to music in the past, you'll know that that is a tedious process that takes time to make it seamless, and now it does it in a matter of moments. They're also beta testing text-based editing. So if you're shooting documentary style stuff, it will now transcribe the footage for you, or the interviews for you. It'll give you text readouts of that, and then it's a completely searchable file, and then you can edit just, I only want this, and then it's going to create the in and out points, cut that for you, pull those things out, and it's again a way of accelerating workflow. So however AI works in the long run, it's going to be a part of our workflow. Figuring out how to use those as tools is a big part of that. So let's talk about the actual breakdown of the production, and then we're going to work our way back into the AI. So now that I have this blueprint here, okay, I have this, everything that I need to shoot this thing. We now actually have to go and shoot it. Eamon says, how much info did you give the AI to create the storyboard? We're going to get into the specifics of that in a minute, but all I did is I gave it the description of action from the shot list that it created, and I gave it info on the framing, the shot size, and shot type. I then ended it with the suffix for Midjourney, but I just fed it the exact information that it gave me, and that was able to then generate the storyboards in the way that we work. We'll talk about the tips and tricks to that here in just a second, but that's kind of the basics of that. Okay? So yeah, AI for storyboards, awesome. Super, super cool. And we're going to talk a little bit more specifically on how to do that. But let's talk about production, right? I have this. I asked it for how should it look and feel, right? What is the overall visual for lighting? And what it told me is that it was going to be dim, soft lighting, right? It kept re-emphasizing it needs to be soft, right? So with that, we then needed to have this window, because that's in the script, right? So we have a backlit character through a window in a bedroom that we have soft lighting for. So we used two sets of lights for this. The first light that we used is the dual array bracket, and we put two 1x1 Gemini hards into that bracket. We put it up on a combo stand, and we put it up through the second story window. Now you can see here we got a lot of snow, but the reason why we did this is that the sun obviously changes direction throughout the day, and for this shoot, I wanted to have a consistent sun coming through the window. So for that, having these two 1x1 Gemini hards up and through the window really makes it easy to have a directional light throughout my day, no matter where the actual sun is. And it is absolutely bananas how bright that light is, much less when you put it in a dual array bracket like we did. So for color for this, because we want to keep things neutral, the snow really changed things. It really cooled down the outside light. So instead of having a nice warm sun, that would have given us mixed lighting. We cooled that light down because, of course, all the Gemini lights are RGBWW with a full Kelvin table of, I believe it's 2,700 to like 10,000. It's a crazy range. So I took out a spectrometer, took a color read of the light that was coming in from the window naturally. We matched that light on the Geminis, so then that way our sun that was coming through the window was going to be the same color temperature of light as to what was already out there. We then took a 3/4 stop shear or shim, and we put that between the light and the window and our talent. That way we're not looking out the window, we're not seeing the outside world, but we're seeing just enough that we're getting the shapes and we're getting the visuals, and it's going to diffuse that light to again create that soft light that the AI told us that we needed to use. So that is our reverse key, is coming in from behind through the window is the two 1x1 Gemini hards. Now, the reverse of that, because of course we wanted this to be directional, we wanted this to be a reverse key, but we didn't want our subjects to be silhouetted. Yes, that's how bright the 1x1 Gemini hards are. We needed to fill that light in, and we did so with the 1x1 Gemini softs, and we used 2 of them. And we did what a technique that we call corner bouncing. Corner bouncing is where you point the fixtures into the corner of a room where the room meets the ceiling. And that creates a soft wrap light where it is going to diffuse that light and kind of cascade it around the room in a very, very pleasing way. And we use 2 of them, so then that way it wouldn't be directional. We have them coming from 2 different directions. It's going to be nice, soft, and even throughout. And it's going to be just enough to fill in the shadow side of our character's face so we can still have that key side coming from the window, but they're not falling into nothingness. We've talked about this last year. We're going to keep talking about it this year. Just because you are going to shoot for a dimly lit or dark environment does not mean that we're using no lights and we're leaning on the ISO of our cameras. That is a surefire way of making a terrible looking project. We light bright, we expose properly, and then we grade for the color that we want. Okay, so for this, we're using a ton of light. It is a very, very bright environment. And we, of course, are shooting with neutral density. We're shooting with our camera at its native ISO. We're getting the exposure values exactly where they need to be, knowing that that's going to give me all of the latitude that I want in post to grade it to give it the look that I want it to have. Another thing we talked about last year, worth revisiting. If you have not watched last year's sessions, go on YouTube, watch those. In terms of also lighting bright, we also want to light spaces and not faces. I'm sure that some of you have run into this before, where you set up all of the lights for the shot that you have framed. You can get that to look perfect, and then the second that you move setups or you move camera or you move anything, the lighting just doesn't work anymore because that lighting was set up for that one shot. What we want to do or strive to do is to back up to light the space in a way that makes sense, that we can move our camera and our subject throughout and not have to break and set every single time. We adjust and tweak as we need to for individual shots. So if we need to fly in bounce cards, bead boards, negative fills, all of that kind of stuff, we can do that to shape our light. But we want to light bright and we want to light spaces and not faces. Those are the 2 things that we really want to stay true to, because it's going to eliminate as much downtime on a film set as possible. So again, 2 1x1 hards outside the window, matched to the outside lighting. We had a 3/4 shim in the window to stop and diffuse down that light just a little bit while keeping it directional. 2 corner bounces of our Gemini softs to give us that nice soft wrap around the other side. That's our entire lighting setup. That's everything that we did for this production. Okay? And again, all of that is dictated by what the AI told us the lighting should look like. I couldn't get it to generate lighting plots, again, because that's kind of a visual medium. But I could then infer what it was asking for and how you wanted the lighting to look to generate that type of lighting. Mouthful. There we go. Okay. So we have a question here. We have a soft and a hard Gemini. Can we put them together as you did? Yeah, you could dual array a soft and a hard. The important thing to note is that the 1x1 hard is 5 times brighter than the 1x1 soft. And that doesn't mean that the soft is not a bright light. As you guys saw, the soft is a plenty bright light. The hard is insanely bright. Something we talk about a lot is buying the brightest, most accurate light your budget can afford. Those fixtures, both of them are fantastic. So yes, you could dual array both of those fixtures together. Just know that one side of that is going to be much brighter than the other unless you dim it to match. Okay, so George says, I think it's a good idea that the AI cannot build lighting setups yet. This is where cinematographers and directors are still needed for the final touch. George, I don't think that AI is at a spot, at least now, where it can do any of this stuff on its own. If I was given the premise of this, I would make a completely different movie from the one that it generated. And that's one of the things that's important to note kind of about AI as a whole, is that it is a supplement. It is artificial. It still leans on the creativity of other people. The only reason why it knows how to write a script is because it's read a lot of scripts. The only reason why it knows what a shot list is because it's read a lot of shot lists. So it still very much needs the creativity and the touch of a human component to make it compelling. This kind of gets to the heart of AI is a tool, right? It is a tool by which filmmakers can use to tell their stories better, more compelling, in a more dynamic way, however you want to use that tool to do so. We're going to see folks that are just like, anybody can make a movie with AI, right? And that's fine. But the thing is that at the end of the day, it will be what it's always been, which is who can tell the best story using the tool. Cameras now are so much more affordable than they were 20 years ago, right? 20 years ago, you would need to spend 6 figures on a camera rig to get a digital cinema camera to do what your phone can do now. It's unbelievable how much technology or light fixtures like light panels have changed the scope of who has access to creativity. But that doesn't mean that the people who have less expensive gear are making movies at the same quality as people with more expensive gear, or vice versa. It's still just the tool by which the creatives use to tell the story. And I think that this is very much in that same ballpark. Nathan, could we create an AI bot that gives us lighting and shot choices? Let's feed it everything from shot deck to learn. We're not far off. Listen, where this technology was 2 months ago is different than what it is today, much less 6 months ago, much less a year ago. I've been messing with this stuff for the last year and a half, and I got to tell you, where we are now from 18 months ago is completely different. We're going to get there, no doubt about it. But it's still just a tool. You still have to do it. You can make a terrible movie with AI. You can make a great movie with AI. You can make a terrible movie without AI or with AI. Okay? So let's keep this in mind, right? These are tools. Let's now dive in a little bit here. I want to show you some of this stuff on the iPad. In terms of the first thing I want to look at is the storyboards that it created and what we did with them. So if we go here, there we go. I have screenshots here of our shots and how closely we tried to replicate the shots that Midjourney gave us, right? So there's one set there. Here we go here. Obviously, our character is not who Maya Evans was supposed to be, but again, the snow kind of knocked it out. So then that way our producer was kind enough to step in as our talent here. But you can see here that we tried really hard to get as close to our boards as possible, okay? So again, even though we're using AI as a tool to generate what shots we're doing, we still have to be the ones to create the look and the feel to make that work. The last shot here, we didn't shoot, and you can see it down here at the bottom here. And it was, of course, because the snow prevented us from being able to actually do this. So we had a car do a pass-by in the background, or the reflection of the window there, one of the many happy accidents that happen in filmmaking, and we just used that as a replacement for that. But let's do two things real quick here. We're going to blitz through this quickly and then open it up for Q&A because I'm sure that there's going to be more questions. Alex asks, how do you feed Midjourney so that it's seen in storyboards consistent with the style, location, and characters? We're getting into that just now. So let's get back to this here. Okay, so if you are unfamiliar, Midjourney uses Discord. So there is no standalone app for Midjourney. There is no web-based version of Midjourney. You need to use Discord to do that. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of YouTube videos at this point on how to use Discord and how to use Midjourney. I would just go through YouTube and take a look at that. But to get Midjourney to produce the images that we want to do, first thing we'll do is let's look at this here. Okay, so when you are using Midjourney, you are going to give it text and it's going to give you an image back. And you can see here at the top, we have a black woman in her 20s approaching the front door with the camera focusing on her face, medium shot, eye level, and then monochromatic, black and white, storyboard illustration by Glenn Keane, and then my suffix here at the end. One thing that I tell my students all the time that is super important, when you are storyboarding, whether you are doing illustrations, whether you are doing previs with a camera and you're shooting it, whether you're using AI, you have to make sure that the aspect ratio of the storyboards that you are creating are the same as the aspect ratio of your final production. How we frame for 16:9 is different than how we frame for 4:3, which is different from how we frame for cinescope or anamorphic or any of our other aspect ratios that we have access to as filmmakers. So when you are storyboarding, always, always, always make sure that your aspect ratio is correct to the final output, because that is going to dictate a ton of what we're doing. The purpose of a storyboard is framing, composition, and blocking. That is what our storyboard is there to convey. In the same way that a shot list is there to convey technical achievement of how we pull that off. So getting back to this, here is how we do this. You'll see at the very end where we have monochromatic, black and white, storyboard illustration by Glenn Keane. That is what is giving us the look and the style. There are a ton of lists online that show the artists that Midjourney has been trained on, and Glenn Keane was a very prolific storyboard artist, and it understands that art style. You don't have to use by Glenn Keane, and you can just say storyboard illustration, and it will give you illustrations, but from board to board, you're going to lose some of that consistency because it's going to be pulling from all of the storyboard reference information that it knows, as opposed to just one. So it's kind of keeping it a little bit more narrow and a little bit more myopic, and I want it to have this look and feel. That's the same reason why I tell it that I want it to be monochromatic and black and white. I tell it that because if it's generating storyboards in color, those color palettes are going to be inconsistent from frame to frame. So by making it black and white, we're ensuring that we're getting some consistency from shot to shot. Midjourney, a couple general rules of thumb: 60 words or less. You get more than 60 words in your description, and it's going to pick and choose what it wants to do. So we want to make sure that they're nice, short, and concise. The other thing is that we want to make sure that we are using multiple adjectives of the same thing, right? So when it comes to framing, if I want a wide shot, if I just type in wide shot, it may or may not give me a wide shot. But if I type in wide shot, comma, full body shot, comma, far away, comma, right? And I give it kind of like 3 different phrases that all mean the same thing, it then can contextualize that and understand that, right? Same with a medium shot. If it's medium shot, comma, mid shot, comma, belt up shot, comma, right? Giving it a couple of words that all mean the same thing is going to help give it the focus that we want, okay? So when it comes to how we put this together from a structural standpoint, the first thing is what it is that we're looking at, where or how that thing is framed, and then the style in which we want that to be delivered to us. So, a black woman in her 20s approaching the front door with the camera focusing on her face. That is the what. This is the what are we looking at? That's what we're looking at. Then medium shot and eye level tell us how we want that to be framed. And then the style is the monochromatic black and white storyboard illustration. Whether you're using this for storyboarding or not, right? However you want to use this image generation tool, that's kind of the basic structuring that we put prompts together in. What we're looking at, how we're putting it together, what's the style, those three things. Then at the very, very end here, you'll see here we have this -- Q5 and then -- AR 17.9. This is what we would call in Midjourney a suffix. That suffix is giving Midjourney detailed information that's on the Midjourney side that's not directly related to the aesthetic. Q5 is the highest quality that this engine currently can do, which we are on version, I believe, 4C. And then AR stands for aspect ratio, which is 17:9 or 185, which is kind of the American cinema standard aspect ratio. So I'm telling it, we want it to be this person. We want it to be framed like this. We want it to be in this style. I want it to be the highest quality that you can generate, which is that Q5. And I want it to be in an aspect ratio of 17:9, which is the same or nearly the same as 185. Okay, that then is what's going to generate those really nice, consistent results within Midjourney. Okay, now if you're getting results that aren't exactly what you want, okay, there's a couple ways that we can do this. We can give it the same thing. So we come in here, imagine, prompt. I don't know if I don't have it in here, but we can write our thing in, and once we get our prompt in here, I'm just going to do prompt there. Once we write whatever that prompt is, which is this string here, right? We do that string there. We put all of that in and we punch enter. If it does not give us what we want, you'll see here underneath we have all of these little buttons. U 1 through 4, V 1 through 4, and then this little re-roll button here on the side. So what these all do is if I like, let's say that when I look at this one, I like this one, right? Mid shot, I like it. Okay, perfect. If I like that shot, I can hit this button here, which stands for upscale frame number 1. And the way this works, that's 1, this over here is 2, this down here is 3, and that over there is 4. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's how it works. So we'll upscale 1, it will then take that, blow that up, and be its own frame. If I like it, but it's not quite right, it's not giving me exactly what I want, you could then punch V1, which stands for variations. So it will then give me another box of 4, but it's all going to be variations on this one. And you can see here it starts to generate that. And if we look at it, the framing is going to be the same, the subject's going to be the same, but it's going to just be a little different. So the pictures on the wall might be different, the door style in the background might be different, the wardrobe might be a little bit different. Those things are going to just be variations on that. If nothing in this looks the way that I want it to look, that's then when we use this re-roll button, which is this here, which is just ignore all of the visuals, rerun that prompt string again, give me that prompt string in the way that I want, and then it will give you that. So when I'm storyboarding, I don't always nail it on the first iteration. Sometimes I need to re-roll. Sometimes I need to kind of adjust my explanation a little bit to give it, if it's not quite eye level, right? Or if it's not quite the right framing. I adjust my parameters a little bit in my prompt to get me closer, and I re-roll 2 or 3 times to get that final thing. Again, like with all this stuff, it's not just a one-punch button thing and you've got it. It does take a little bit of work, but the amount of time it would take me to draw these boards versus running generation through here, night and day different, okay? So that's a little crash course on Midjourney here. The last one I want to show you guys is a little crash course here on ChatGPT, and then we'll kind of open it up to Q&A. So if you have questions, feel free to toss them in here. Peter asks, how did the AI know that the 20-year-old woman was the same in the shot from the previous shot? So there's 2 ways of doing that. I have found that if my prompt is specific enough, it's going to give me something that's similar from shot to shot. It won't be identical, but it'll be similar. So if we go over here, okay, you'll see that this woman does look a little different than that woman, who looks a little different than that woman. She's wearing a black cocktail dress over here. She's wearing a 2-part blouse and dress skirt there. We're blonde over here. We're wearing pants over here. We're wearing a white dress here. So there are absolute like low strap here, right? She's white, right? Like, so like it's not always perfect. But again, I don't need my boards to be perfect. I just need them to convey the proper framing, composition, and blocking. If it's doing that, I'm okay with some of the variation. If you really hate variation, you can do a thing called image prompting within Midjourney. We're not going to get into that here. YouTube that. There is a way that you can get more consistency out of it doing something like that. I've had mixed results with that, so I just stick with doing very, very specific prompting. Okay, so wow, all right, we got this here. How do you feel Midjourney, each scene in the storyboard consistent? Okay, we just talked about that. That's great. Does it have the ability to decipher intricate details of dynamic symmetry and armature to deliver what we want? Yes and no. Midjourney also is trained on individual artists and people and things. So if you wanted a particular style, like you could add into your prompt string, like by Wes Anderson or Bob Yauman or Reed Morano, right? Anybody that, you know, has a very distinct visual look, Quentin Tarantino, that kind of thing. And that will then also influence that framing. So yes and no, but again, all of this stuff is artificial, right? It's just taking engines and learning on those engines, and it's not using thinking patterns in the same way that we do. So yes and no. Can you use Diffusion B instead of Midjourney? It's free on Mac OS. I don't know what Diffusion B is. My guess is based on its title, it's built on Stable Diffusion. Stable Diffusion is free and it runs locally on your system. But Stable Diffusion, up to this point, and again, this stuff changes so quickly, but up to this point, Stable Diffusion does not give you this level of results that Midjourney does. Midjourney right now, out of the 3 main ones, is going to give you the most realistic and detailed results of the 3 AI art image generation tools. Okay, good. We're caught up there. Diving into this real quick here. Over here. This is ChatGPT. Okay. Again, there's a free version of it. Whether or not you get access to the free version depends entirely on the bandwidth of ChatGPT at that moment. So if it's a busy time of day, you won't get in. If it's late at night, early in the morning, weekends, that kind of thing, you probably will. There's a paid version that you can opt into, which then you get access to all the time. Now, we'll get into this real quick because we are rapidly running out of time. But to get ChatGPT to do what you want, you can just ask it basic things. So like, write me the premise of a 1 to 2 minute short film. It should, come on now, there we go. It should be in one location with 2 actors. Okay, so you can do something as simple as this, and we can run that. Come on, there we go. And then boom, there we go. Title, Lost Key, premise, 2 friends, Jack and Rachel, are stuck inside a small elevator in a skyscraper after the power goes out. Okay, boom, this is great. This gives me everything that I want. If I like that, I can keep this conversation going. If I want to change that, write a different premise. Okay, there we go. And we go here, and then we can get something else like this. Okay, so this would be kind of the basic way that we can use our ChatGPT. Okay, most of the time this will work just fine. But what I want to do is let's say that I want to go with this version here. I don't want to then keep this dialogue going in this one chat, only because now we have this other story that it's going to get confused by and it's going to influence the conversation. So I'm actually going to create a completely new chat. And what I'm going to say now is write a properly formatted script based on the following premise. Okay? There. Then we're going to go here and stop generating there. And we're going to go here. And we're going to paste that in, and then enter that there. Okay, boom. So now we have this. It's taking that information that I've given it, and it is giving me fade in, exterior day, interior. It's giving me dialogue. It's giving me parentheticals. It's giving me action lines. It's giving me a ton of the information that I would want to use. And but you'll see here, like, it's giving me parentheticals for every single line of dialogue, which is not how we would normally write a script. But it's giving me a great starting point to where I could take this script and then I could go into Studio Binder, which is a free pre-production online toolkit, which is awesome. And I can load this script directly into Studio Binder and format it the way that I want to and tweak and change it. Now, the other thing you could do here is that I can adjust this script. Let's say that I didn't like a character, or I wanted something else to happen, or I wanted to tweak the dialogue or whatever. I can just keep this chat going and tell ChatGPT, okay, I don't like this, change this, tweak this, do that, and it will sit there and it will go through and refine that all out for you, which is awesome. But let's go through here. I'm going to then copy my script out. Okay, keep this going, come on. A little more difficult on an iPad. There we go, up. Perfect. Okay, fade in, copy. I'm going to create a new chat because, again, we don't want this to get confused and we're going to do something else. Create a detailed shot list based on this script. Okay, and then I'm going to paste my script in and I'm going to punch go. And then it's going to sit here and it's going to generate out a shot list for me. And you'll see here, wide shot, medium shot, close up, medium shot, right? It's going to do all of this and it's going to do that. And we love this, okay? Oh, Vamshi, we are absolutely diving deep into the matrix on this one, for sure, okay? So we have this. This is all the information, but it's not in the format that I want. So I can then in turn say here, rewrite that in table format with columns for shot size, shot type, angle, movement, and description of action. Okay? Boom. And then it'll sit here and it'll spit out exactly what I've asked for here. Right? There we go. Yeah, Emmanuel, we're deep in it, buddy. This is we're all the way in this thing. Okay? And then again, you can ask it to do things like all of these shots are eye level and stationary and static. That's super boring, right? I can then go back and say, hey, let's add camera movement, or hey, add these things or take these things away. And you can sit here and you can sculpt and craft this out in a ton of different ways. But again, these are tools. This is stuff you are going to, as a creative filmmaker who knows what you're doing, be able to generate a much better shot list than that will. You're going to make a better script. You're going to write better characters, right? But using this as a supplementary tool to help influence the stuff that you're doing is a great way of accelerating workflows and improving end results. So if you have a script for a story that you've done, but you need character Bibles written, you can have it help you write your character Bibles based on any premise or descriptions that you have based on your script. If you have writer's block and you've got your point of conflict and you don't know how to get your characters out of it, it can help kind of give you ideas on how to write your way out of a problem. If you are unsure of the cinematic language that you want to use, you can use it as a tool to get you started on a path that is going to then give you that final end result that you are looking for. These are tools. We can use these tools in helpful ways to accelerate our workflows and to improve our processes. I don't recommend going through and making a short film start to finish, only letting AI make all the decisions, right? It's going to limit you in what you can do. The lens choicing is not what I would do. The movement isn't necessarily what I would do. But this exercise was kind of to show an extreme example of what you could do. But scale it back. Use it as a storyboarding tool. Use it as a shot listing tool. Use it as a writing tool to help you in what you're creating. Because at the end of the day, you are the creative. And these are tools. Okay? We are rapidly running out of time here. If you are not yet following me on Instagram, that is where I am most active. You can just find me at Garrett Salmons. I love talking with people. If you have more questions and things, I'd love to continue a dialogue over there. Subscribe to Light Panels, both the next session, which is going to be on camera movement and image systems. Make sure that you are subscribed to their YouTube channel. You can find this to replay it, or the past videos that we have done with them there. And as always, it is a pleasure to do these things with you. And we're going to be exploring more cool and creative tools as we move on. Harsh, real quick here, before we sign off, he said, do you use any AI tools to edit the film too? Yes and no, not this one, other than the music remixing tool, which is built into Premiere. It was super, super awesome. But I have used ChatGPT to help me edit documentaries much more quickly with text-based editing, which is, again, something that is in Premiere's AI beta, which is super, super cool and interesting. So, thanks so much to Light Panels for hosting this. I'm excited to do more of these things with you. Follow me, follow them. Subscribe for the next one, and I will see you all when we talk about camera movement. Thanks.